Chapter 7, we're going to talk about bacterial diseases acquired through the skin and the mucosa from arthropods, vectors, animal sources, and the soil. So zoonosis is actually an infectious disease that can be spread from animals to humans. To my knowledge, there is not any bacteria or any sort of organism that can spread from humans to animals. Usually it's animals to humans. And arthropod vectors are insects that carry the disease. Most are parasitic, meaning they're living off of or on from the other species. Okay, so talking about something being parasitic or a vector, it usually will be, for instance, a mosquito. A mosquito lives off of something else's blood. If it didn't have that blood meal from an animal or from a human, then it couldn't live. So that's usually when we talk about something being a parasite or parasitic. It has to live. It can't live on its own without that host organism. Usually what can happen is it can pick up the infectious microorganism and then later infect other animals or humans by inoculation. Inoculation meaning, I don't want to say injection, but it's actually pushing whatever material into the individual or the organism that it has carried. So once again, going back to mosquito, if the mosquito goes from dog A to dog B, so it has bit dog A and dog A has heartworm, it's going to take a little bit of that blood from dog A and feed off of it, and then it's going to move from dog A to dog B, who's not contaminated, but when it bites them, there's a little bit of the blood that it pushes back into dog B. And so that's kind of where the actual spread comes from. It picks it up from one, it carries a little bit in its mouth or its stinger or however it's going to bite, and then it pushes a little bit of that contaminated blood into the second organism. And that's what I was just talking about. Some of these arthropods act only as the mechanical carriers, so that's exactly what a mosquito does. It just carries it from one to the other. They're not true reservoirs. They don't. It doesn't grow within that mosquito. It's not a reservoir or a holding point for that microorganism. It just carries it from dog A to dog B. It's just the mechanical carrier. Other arthropods can become reservoirs for an organism if it infects them and is able to develop and multiply. So basically, there are some arthropods out there that can allow, and we'll talk more about it in as the chapter continues, how the microorganism actually can live in the reservoir. Just a little story, just using the heartworm example from dog A to dog B. I adopted a corgi some years ago, and she came from a groomer. She came from a breeder that I had got my first corgi from, and she was looking to move, so I loved this little dog. I had wanted to buy her before, and she did not want to sell her, so then she called me and said, "Oh, I'm moving, do you want the dog?" So when I got her, I took her to the vet for her physical, and the next day he called me and said she had heartworm. And the her name was Gizmo, she had to go through the whole entire heartworm treatment, and that is how that organism spread. And I think the groomer knew that, and that heartworm, and she had hookworm, and hookworm lives in soil for years and years and years, and it's a huge public health issue with animals if you have contaminated soil with hookworm, because hookworm can actually burrow in a human's foot. It can burrow in the dog, through an area on the dog as well. But the vet said he kind of felt the reason why she was moving, and she put her whole farm up for auction, was because she knew that she was contaminated with worms, and with the heartworm. And I'm sure her other dogs had heartworm as well, and she just wasn't fessing up. But that's just how easily that these infections can be spread from one reservoir to another. Rickettsia is it's a group of microorganisms that phylogenetically occupy an area between, they're somewhere in between a bacteria and a virus. They are non-motile, gram-negative. We know our bacteria are gram-negative and gram-positive. Non-motile, meaning it's minimal with its movement. These Rickettsia live within a cell membrane. They don't move outside that cell membrane, so it makes sense when we say that it's non-motile. Pleomorphic, meaning that it can alternate how it looks. So it has different, it can change, it can alter its appearance basically. And it can be present as any of the shapes of our bacteria, meaning cocci, bacilli, spirochetes. Those are all some of our shapes of, or they're the names, and they indicate the actual shape of the bacteria. So this Rickettsia is very interesting, the way that it can infect and change its appearance around and make it highly difficult to diagnose as well as treat. So in this particular chapter, we are only going to be talking about zoonotic diseases that are caused by Rickettsia and bacteria. We'll talk about viruses in the next chapter. And these Rickettsia and bacteria that we discuss are acquired most often through mucosa and skin.